Well, welcome to My Life in Football, and we're back with part two of the show with Laurence. And of course, Laurence, we spoke last time about all of yourself running the line, etc., etc. And of course, you were just about to go into the situation of you, going into your administration stuff. So, I mean, with the administration stuff, your refereeing career had finished, and unfortunately, but I mean, how did it go about then that you started getting into the administration stuff, and how did you get your role, your first role?
I've always, throughout my active refereeing career, I held numerous voluntary roles, from being a youth league referee appointment secretary, chairman of the Southern League Match Officials Association, secretary of the Football League Association in the Southwest. All sorts of administrative roles. So I had a fair bit of experience about doing football administration. Hampshire FA were looking for a chief executive. I applied, and I got the job. So I left BT to join Hampshire, and I had a great 6 years at Hampshire FA. I was very blessed. The chairman of Hampshire FA, John Ward, God rest his soul. He taught me so much. One of the big things I learned from the time at Hampshire was, particularly in football, you need mentors. You need people who can help you and look after you, and and not be afraid to tell you if you're wrong and what have you, because we've all got a bit of the young warrior in us. We're all, particularly in the changing world we now live in. And John was just a brilliant chairman, and we had a ball for 6 years. John was also the representative to FA Council and an FA board member, actually. And it was at the time when the Wembley Stadium was being knocked down on the new state, so England were on tour all over the country. I can remember, driving John all over the country to games, and we do all our planning on the journeys back at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And we set about modernising Hampshire FA, and I look at Hampshire FA today, and it's one of the leading county FAs in the country. It's tremendous, and I was so proud of the CEO, Neil. So, Neil worked for me when I was there in 2000, and to see how Neil and the board there have modernised and taken Hampshire FA is really great to see. And but change comes with pain, doesn't it? I wouldn't say I was universally loved. County FAs back in 2000 were pretty old school, and they didn't particularly like change. I mean, I can remember one individual who probably wasn't top of his Christmas card list, who took great pleasure in making me a cup of coffee with cold tap water one afternoon, and all those sort of stories go on. So for Hampshire, it was just helping them come into the new world. 2000 was the start of new millennium, and the world was changing, and county FAs, their role very much, I believe, is as a service provider to the football community. And and Hampshire needed to change, and we started that change process that's continued ever since, and that's why they're where they are now. At the same time, Bournemouth were having a new ground built and going through all sorts. Bournemouth's history's been quite checkered in terms of finances and how they survived and not survived, and points deductions. And they asked me in 2005, would I be able, they approached the Hampshire FA and said, could we borrow Laurence for a day a week just to help us with some of our admin? County were quite happy for that. But of course, the inevitable happens, doesn't it? You get more and more sucked in. And I can remember in Christmas Eve 2000, and I think the years now, 2005, I was approached to, would I become their chief executive? Big decision. Big decision, because and I remember to this day, and being out on the pitch on the Christmas bank holiday, a really bright, cold, sunny day, early in the morning, because I knew the game was going to be called off because the pitch was frozen, and the sun's shining. I'm looking in the middle of the ground, saying, "This is a bonkers decision, but I can't turn it down." And so I joined Bournemouth and was there from 2006 to 2008, and it was a mess. No way to describe it. I mean, it was just totally dysfunctional, if I'm honest. But I don't regret a moment of it. I was only there a short while. it was intrinsically a supporters trust club. I sort of partly joined because Sean O'Driscoll was a manager. I was quite good friends with Sean, and you know, I had a lot of respect for him as a manager. He was a really good coach. But yeah, it's all about, once you turn back the covers of a book, you find out how bad things really are. And it wasn't in good shape, not good shape at all. And you know, in 2007, you know, Sean decided to move on. Kevin Bond became manager. He brought in Jeff Mostyn, who's the current chairman. The club changed into ownership, and you know, I left in 2008, which is, you know, these things happen. It was sad. I was sad to leave. It was been around the club all my life, so it was, did it damage me a bit? If I'm really honest now, looking back in hindsight, yeah, it did damage me a bit. Truthful. But so proud of what the club's achieved since then, and full credit to Jeff Mostyn for what he's done. But that's how I ended up in Leicestershire. Another county FA in need of modernisation. I had 3.5 really happy years at Leicestershire. It was just fun, because it was just a repeat of Hampshire to me. It was a modernisation programme, and then
that's a bit of a journey. A bit of a journey, though, from where you were, from Bournemouth, going up to Lancashire. Did that have
yeah, well, there aren't too many football jobs flying around, so you've got to be mobile, haven't you? So it's so I came up to Leicestershire, say 3.5 years, and you know, I tried 2 or 3 times to get a role at the FA, and fourth time lucky, I was appointed as a senior county FA business manager, and then moved across to become head of National League system in 2015 when dear Mike Appleby, God rest his soul, left the FA, and since then I've been working hard to make sure we've got a real pyramid in place. There's, you know, lots, and trying to get more focus on how we can leverage more investment and really support the clubs. But it's been a great journey. You know, it's, again, just met so many great people on that journey. You know, I like to think I'm a very open person. You know, I'm very privileged with, and I've gained a lot of knowledge, I suppose, in football, in terms of so many. I've touched so many different parts of the game, which is quite unique, actually. Doesn't mean I'm any good at any of it, but I've touched a lot of parts of it, and so I've got a very, very broad church of knowledge across different parts of the game. And so yeah, it's been really interesting. It's been a really interesting journey, actually, and ended up at the Southern League dinner a couple of weeks ago, which was like coming, as I said the night, it was like coming home.
But with that Bournemouth job, was you there with the new stadium or the overseeing?
Yeah, they just moved into the new stadium. Yeah, they just moved into the new stadium, and yeah, I mean, yeah, they had all sorts of financial problems. On top of that, the old ground had been condemned, basically, and they had to build a new stadium, and you know, somehow they managed to do it, you know, without, and it was partly built on the back of the new stadium at the Dale, that's out in Southampton. So I think it was a bit of a Friday afternoon job, and it had, you know, every week something was breaking or needed repairing. You know, it was just. But we got through, actually, and you know, at the time it looked really, really tough, and there were some tough decisions taken. But you got to do that, actually, and you shouldn't duck the tough decisions. Me moving on was a tough decision in many respects, you know, but it was the right decision for the club, if I'm honest. I think I'm always quite self-critical of myself. I think you're going to be a chief executive of a professional football club these days. I think you need to have either very strong financial or strong legal skills, because the game's changed so much. You know, if we look at how football's changed, you know, even in my lifetime, it's remarkable. You know, it's the game today bears no semblance to the game that I grew up into in the 1970s and 80s. You know, it's so. I mean, a few times on Facebook recently, and they've been picking up some old games. I saw Derby play Leeds at the baseball ground on Facebook. Someone put it on there a couple of weeks ago. I mean, the state of the pitch, the state of the ground, you know, the way the game was played. They were brilliant footballers. Now, some of those players were unbelievable. You think what they were playing on and how the game was played and how they trained. And, you know, it's just such a different world to how football is today. And that's, I think in some respects, and again, that's a testament to, you know, I come back to the role I've got now, how the clubs at our level of the game consistently meet those challenges. You know, they'll meet them in different ways, but that's also a huge success for clubs at our level of the game.
But with your job that you have now, and of course, I mean, what was it like when you first got into there in 2015?
Yeah.
I mean, what was your sort of your main priorities when you got into it? And can you explain to everybody that might not know what we see the job title, but what does the job title mean to, you know, what is the structure of your job as such?
Yeah, I mean, we're myself and Matt and James, who work with me, we're part of the football operations team at the FA who intrinsically look after the professional game. Our role is to make sure that that we administer the leagues who operate the National League system. You know, all the leagues are autonomous from steps 1 to step 6. It's managed through the Alliance Committee for steps 1 to 4 and the Leagues Committee for step 5 and 6. The National League system is governed by a code of rules called standardised rules. There's some variance in there, but it's our responsibility to make sure those rules are applied. National League system regulations are applied. Any changes made, we're responsible for probably the most emotive bit, the club allocations. And we work with other parts of, that's our front end, but we also link directly into the player registration team, the competitions team, the sanctions team. And so it all comes together as a sort of a matrix. My role is to sort of be over all of that with other senior managers, reporting into the director of program. It's also working across the business and with other stakeholders. So I work very closely with the Football Foundation. I work very closely with the grassroots division in terms of they lead on our club development. And of course, most of the clubs in the National League system will have grassroots teams as well. And one of the programs we're rolling out now is a business, is around club development with our club consultants to help clubs, become, perhaps focus on business transformation. I mean, I think it's quite remarkable we came through COVID without losing any clubs, to be truthful. I mean, when Friday, March the 13th will be engraved on my mind when COVID hit. None of us knew what we were going into. And it was the fact that we were able to sort of leverage £40 million into the National League system from government, from the Premier League, from Foundation, the FA, plus give strong advice how to access government funding like furlough and all these new words that came to play in that period, kept the National League system alive. But also what it's done, it's raised the importance of the National League system and its clubs and its leagues as to the role they play in football. One of my biggest challenges is making sure the National League system has the right level of visibility and people understand exactly what goes into running football at this level of the game, the role this level of the game has in terms of growing participation, and the significance that our clubs play in their local community, how important it is to the local community. So had COVID been an absolute car crash and we'd lost lots of clubs, it would have left a really difficult hole in the game. And I think where we're going now is that we're helping clubs go through this program of business transformation at their own pace. No one's being forced to do anything, but those who want to can. To become more self-sustaining, because I think most people in the game recognise that if we can get our clubs into a more self-sustaining position, it starts to reduce risk. And coupled with that, we want to help clubs develop and understand what they're coming into. The National League system is a national pyramid. Steps 5 and 6 are regional football. Steps 4 to 1 is national football. And, you know, we're governed by rule books and rules, but actually, in this day and age, people don't read rule books, let's be honest about it. So we're working on a licensing model where we can, you know, produce a guide for clubs that, you know, you come in at step 6, and this is what you're going to have to do at each step, all the way through to step 1, so they can plan. You know, we've got to get better at helping clubs plan and understand, you know, what they need to do at each step of the system, because quite often it's quite reactive rather than proactive. And that's not very good from the centre's point of view when we're trying to forecast expenditure on grants and budgets. So I guess it's a little bit of a modernisation programme, if we're honest about it, in a positive way. You know, there's more investment going into the National League system now than there was in 2015. We've created a pyramid that provides promotion and relegation from step 6 up to step 1. The restructure we've done over the last couple of years has worked well. I think there might be a bit more work to do at step 6, if I'm honest. I think there are, you know, some of the margins there perhaps aren't quite right, but, you know, there's always going to be, you're always going to tweak things. There's nothing wrong with that. Whereas when I came into post, it wasn't quite as structured as that. You know, and I think we've made a lot of progress. And one of the big areas of progress I've seen is the relationship across the 3-step 3 and 4 leagues. The Trident leagues they really are working well together, and that's got to be for the benefit of the game as well. And, you know, it's I like to think others may have a different view, of course. Actually, the National League system is in a far stronger place today than it was 10 years ago. And that's got to be good for the clubs. It's got to be good for the leagues. It's got to be good for football as well. Because
I was speaking to Tony Gale not so long ago, and he was talking to me, and he was saying about at steps sort of 1 and 2 where they've got the 16 playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. He said he would love to see that sort of thing be brought into sort of steps 3 and steps 4 to give the, you know, more teams more of a chance to do that. Do you think that will be something that might happen going forward, or is it something that might not even be on the table to do?
There's no reason why it shouldn't be on the table. It will be the leagues who are all representative on the Alliance Committee to discuss that. If that's something they wanted to do and there was a desire, then it will be considered. It has been kicked around a couple of times and there hasn't been an appetite. But it's you know, the leagues working together, that's the sort of things they can influence and come with. If that's something they wanted to do, you know, there's no reason why it shouldn't happen, but it's very much for the leagues to decide that.
So, I mean, going back to that awful day that we spoke about earlier on, you know, in March, you know, when COVID hit, how difficult were those 2 years for you? Because, you know, we saw social media wise and clubs wise and so forth. And of course, it was all kicking off around the first, especially the first season when it got null and void at the end of the season. And how much pressure was on the likes of yourself and other people on the committee at that stage where we completed a certain amount of football, and, you know, clubs like some of the local ones around here, like the Wares and teams like that were, you know, well away and on the way to possibly getting promotion. How difficult was that to sort of null and void those seasons? It must have been probably the worst period of time for you in the position that you're in.
Yeah, it was incredibly challenging. Yeah, I mean, we were all dealing with something that had never happened before. So there's no precedent. You're working within your regulations, and regulations had to have changes because of what COVID was bringing. and not everyone was pleased with the outcome. I don't think it would be. I don't think any organisation could have found a solution or an outcome that would have been 100% universally loved. We worked really hard with the clubs. We probably learned some lessons in the second year from the first year. But we had to react quickly as well. It was, and everyone had a different. There was no shortage of opinions or options as to what should or shouldn't be done. What we had to achieve, what we had to get to, was a position that was fair for the majority of clubs. And people will always have, and quite reasonably, will have different opinions. But everything we did fairly and correctly, and with looking at the game through a lens at the whole game, National League system. And I am absolutely confident and believe we handled that COVID crisis exceptionally well.
And is it, of course, now sort of, if something like that, not necessarily COVID, but something similar came up in the meantime, you've learnt from COVID now that you guys would look at it and go, well, this is how we do it. You've now got that sort of template of how to.
Yeah, I think we learned lessons from year 1 to year 2, as I said. So I think with 2 years of not having full seasons, I think we did learn, no question of doubt about that. And we were dealing with something that was absolutely unprecedented, and we weren't given the luxury of any warning or any time. We had to move in a very, very short window of what to do. And it didn't just come down to about playing football matches. It came down to the sustainability of clubs. Clubs were faced with a situation where there was going to be no money coming in.
Yeah.
And so people will always have views as to, you could have done this, you could have done that, whatever, and that's absolutely reasonable. Anybody who knows me knows I'm very open-minded on these things. But on reflection, you have to look back and say, did the decision, where we got to, what we reached, was it fair, was it reasonable, and was it consistent across the game in the wider interest of the whole game? I've got no doubts it was absolutely the right decision.
It's a bit like what you said, though, because if you'd have acted one way, you've had other clubs say, well, why did you not do it like this? And if you did that way, you'd have other people saying, well, hang on a minute, why did you not do it like this? So although you listen to some of the clubs and you might agree with certain decisions and ways they describe things, you go, yeah, fair enough. But you then got to look at it from your sort of situation where basically you was in a lose-lose situation.
Definitely. And to be honest, every year, there are clubs who feel they've got a grievance because they haven't been promoted or they've been relegated, been placed in a league through the allocations that they don't want to be placed in. That goes with the territory. Is it a stressful job? Yeah, it is actually. If I'm honest, yeah, it is a stressful job. Yeah, but do I love it? Yeah, it's a great job.
So talking about where teams are in leagues, I mean again, how long does that take to sort out? In from the end of the season, and once who's where, who's in what step. So how long does that physically take to sort out, and how much sort of think tank time does it do to put fits round pegs in round holes, if you know what I'm saying? Because especially over the last few years, where there's been a lot of changes, where teams have been moved, moved sidewards, and sometimes you look at it, and I know the first year that the team that I did some stuff for before in Harlow, you looked at it, and I remember the season just gone, and I looked at it and I went, They've made a mistake here. They've missed Harlow out in the Isthmian South Central. They've just disappeared. Someone's not put it in. They didn't even think about looking at any of the other divisions, and then all of a sudden someone went, "Oh no, have a look at the Southern League," and there they were in the Southern League. So how does that sort of physically work? And because some people don't work out where the lines are, and do those lines move depending on who gets promoted and relegated?
I mean, there are a lot of variables in this. Firstly, I always say to everybody, Dave, you and I could agree the perfect model this afternoon, where everybody's happy. And then we'll have a football season, and it'll be totally different because we don't know who's being promoted and relegated, and that will be it. England is a dreadful shape, if we're really honest, and clubs are not evenly spread across the country. You have large conurbations and pockets of clubs. And so you start putting the variables together, and we can't start anything until the season's finished. Once the season's finished, we have got a sophisticated mapping tool, because inevitably we could do something in the southwest that has a knock-on effect that could impact on the northeast or the northwest. And so, and it's fair to say there will be a cohort of clubs probably in the centre of the country who might move between different leagues or whatever, but it might not be so impactful as some of the clubs on the extremity of the country.
Yeah.
But under the regulations, it's a 1-year contract, so you're with a league for 1-year contract.
Yeah.
So and because of that line, a club could end up moving. We genuinely try really hard not to move clubs on a regular basis. It takes about 2 weeks to really work our way through it, because it's amazing. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You put one piece and it knocks another piece out, and
yeah.
And so some are quite an easy fit because of where they are, and then there's others where that line does move, and one season you could be in one league, and another season you could be in another league. We try and look at the mileage. We do try and look at mileage. As I said earlier on, we're step 6 is probably the one area where we might need to do a bit more work, I think, and however we address that. Interestingly, this year's been the lowest number of appeals we've had.
Right. Okay.
So, bearing in mind, we're trying to place 940 odd clubs across the 6 steps. I think this year we had 11 appeals.
Which surely shows that you those jigsaw puzzles are all of a sudden going in the right holes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you look at it from that perspective, it does seem to work. And we have to accept as well that you get into step 4 and above football. It is national football. It is to jump into that next level up. And is everyone always going to be happy? Of course they're not. There's 944 clubs, so there's bound to be some clubs who end up where they don't want to be. It's inevitable, unfortunately. But this year, I have to say, and I'm going on the number of appeals. I think that's a positive message.
I sort of speak to people. I see people saying stuff about the league that Harlow in, and they say, "Oh, we've got to go away to Cirencester. How on earth are we going to Cirencester? It's a joke," and etc. etc. And I just turned around and looked at it the other day and said, "Yeah, okay, we travelled to Cirencester, but when you actually look at the league that you're saying you want it to be in, there's 3, maybe 4 journeys in there longer than Cirencester. But I said, because you're so used to being in, a certain league, and you get moved sideways into another league, all of a sudden, now I want to go back to the one I feel comfortable in. Do you know what I mean? So it's a case of having a look at it, and just, I don't know, meeting new people, which should be a positive thing, and you know, and having that sort of family atmosphere as well.
Clubs, I can understand that. I mean, clubs are very comfortable when they get to know a league. And I actually understand that. It's not just about mileage in terms of distance. It's also about travelling time, because the challenges of the southeast corner will be around travelling time. The challenges in the southwest will be about distance.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's. I mean, I honestly think in the pyramid in its current state where it is now, it's certainly in a better place than it was 10 years ago.
Because you've got clubs, you know, you have got some clubs there which must cause you, you know, a real headache when you look at people like, you know, with a distance, I suppose, of travel and how to get to those places, the likes of, you know, Truro and Plymouth Pathway, and then you move over a little bit further and you've got Guernsey, you know, and you've got Jersey Bulls, and you think to yourself, well, where'd you put them? I mean, one of the funniest things was, I think last year, is for me, I'd always wanted to take on sort of Mark Letizier's and go and see Mark Letizier over in Guernsey, and I looked at it and he was in the league that we were in, and then of course we were taken out and put into another league. I thought, oh, so close.
It's it is. I mean, everyone will have a view, and quite fairly so. I think the vast majority of clubs just get on with it. And you just never know where that line is going to fall, because you can't predict at the start of the season who's going to be promoted and relegated, and that will always influence it. And however hard we try, I'm pleased this year, because I think this year's gone well. You know, and the feedback I've got. I mean, I know there's some clubs who don't think that. I fully understand where they're coming from. But I have to look at a national picture. I can't look at it through a lens of at a club. I got to look at the national picture.
Do you get to that stage of actually releasing that constitution, waiting till after the AGMs, and then you just feel like, just does that sort of pressure do you get that sort of almost pressure release at the end of it, you know, that sort of time, because they've been released, if there's been appeals have been heard and been settled, do you know what I mean? After that, do you then get that?
Sort of, but then there's something else on the table. It just, you know, it never sleeps. You know, I'm someone who makes myself available to people, so you know, it is 7 days a week, and you know, it's important for me, the contact the clubs have with the FA, and in the main, the contact from the clubs is with their leagues. So it's important that if clubs have contact with the FA, they feel that, you know, they are listened to, they do get a service, and we, you know, try very hard to do that. Don't always get it right before people shout at me, I know that, but we do our best. Equally, we work very closely with the leagues, across the national league system. The leagues are fantastic, all of them. Yeah, I'm very, I think the leagues from steps 1 to 6 in the national league system, tremendous what they do. Absolutely tremendous. And I think, the alliance leagues in particular, so the Trident leagues, and to see how well they're working together, the collaboration that's going on, their representatives to the FA, phenomenal. Professional organisations, their general managers who really run the leagues well on behalf of their boards. It's impressive, and that's why the pyramid is successful, the national league system is successful, and that's why many federations envy us.
Yeah, and you speak what you say. I mean, I'm not too sure who is on the Northern League, I'll be honest with you. But when you look at people like Jason Mills and Kelly Discipline, I mean, two absolutely superb people that
and Andrew Firth on the Northern Premier League. I mean, the three guys do a tremendous job. And they are tough jobs, because they're not always going to give people the answers that people want. That's part of being in football. You have to. It's probably when my referee training came in quite good, because you've got to manage situations where people are going to be disappointed. But that's football.
Yeah. I mean, with your role at the FA, for somebody like myself, it's a dream job to work for the FA. That's just, I'm a sad. I'm sorry if that's what people think, but that's just me.
It's always my dream job as well. So
what's it like working for the FA, and will we see Laurence Jones as chairman of the FA one day?
No, you won't see Laurence Jones as chairman of the FA one day because I'm too old and I'm not a council member. So no, that definitely won't happen. What's it like working for the FA? I'm a bit old school, I guess, because I am old. I'm just proud to work for the FA. I say to anybody, you get to the top of the stairs at Wembley Park Tube Station and look down the housing estate that was Wembley Way back to the stadium. If you're not motivated to work with football, you shouldn't be going to that building. And I'm very passionate, and sometimes that gets me in trouble because I'm passionate about this level of the game, and I want this level of the game to have a voice.
So you were saying, it's a job you love at the FA?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be incredibly proud. I'm incredibly proud to work for the FA. I say to anybody who gets to the Wembley Park Tube Station and you look down Wembley Way to Wembley Stadium, if you're not excited about going to work in that building, then I'm not sure football's the right job for you, personally. I'm very passionate about the National League system. I assume clubs' main level of contact is with the leagues, but when they do come to the FA, I want to make sure they get the best service. I mean, they're not going to get the answers they want, but they get the best level of service. And I know we don't always get it right, but I'm very committed to achieving that. I'm very open and very available. People around the game, I think, know that. I'm contactable whenever. I see my role to represent the FA with the National League system, leagues and clubs. I think more importantly, I see my role to represent the National League system, leagues and clubs into the FA, to make people really understand how important this level of the game is, how important our clubs are, how important our volunteers are. What would life be like if we didn't have this pyramid of football? What would be the impact on English football if it wasn't there? And I take that role very seriously, and I'm sure at times I probably get myself in sometimes in a bit of trouble because I'm quite strong in my beliefs as to what the role of the National League system is and how important it is to the English game. And the FA is a very broad church, of course, so it's not just focused on the National League system. But I work tirelessly to try and promote this level of the game across the FA. The FA, like many organisations, is I think transitioning. We live in a very different world, and it's really, really important that we maintain our relevance across all areas of the game. And I'm very passionate about making sure the FA not only maintains, but it grows its relevance to the National League system. And also, I represent the National League system into other stakeholders, like the Premier League. We should not underestimate the money invested by the Premier League into the National League system. I'm always very grateful for what the money they put in, whether it comes direct or whether it comes via the Football Foundation. Their support of the National League system is far bigger than many people actually realise, and we should recognise. We have to recognise that. There's also the work the Football Foundation does. I mean, the Stadium Improvement Fund is invaluable for clubs. Yeah, I see my role very much to promote all the values of the National League system and the value it brings to the game, and to support the clubs and leagues, and to which I try my best to do.
So I mean, I'm sort of on closing. I mean, if you had one message to the clubs that in your under your control, as such as the National League system, I mean, what would your sort of closing statement to them be?
Be proud of what you're achieving, and don't underestimate the value you have to the game in this country. The football landscape's changing. I've seen a marked change in the quality across many aspects of the National League system at club level, and buy into the support the FA wants to provide and is providing in terms of developing club development, business transformation. Live within your means, but don't underestimate the importance that clubs and leagues at this level of football have to the English football pyramid. It's a critical part of the pyramid, and one that, I'm probably coming to the end of my tenure through age. I am sure that, as we look to the future, the National League system will get stronger and more sustainable. But we've all got to work together, and actually, the greater the level of collaboration and everyone working together will make the whole pyramid a lot stronger.
Well, listen, Laurence, it's been a fantastic couple of shows of yourself. I've really, really enjoyed it. And I would say a massive thank you for giving up your valuable time to do this with us. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, David. Absolute pleasure to be here. And we'll be back with another episode of My Life in Football very shortly. Thank you for watching. Please make sure you watch. Please make sure you subscribe to the Southern League YouTube channel. But until next time, good night.